On the outside, always looking in. We'll still hold.
Cold pizza, never had it before. I don't want to try it, it sounds disgusting. My dad had been in Canada for 4 or 5 months by himself at this point, and he'd created this bachelor lifestyle that a child just didn't fit into. You know, he was never a present father, he was just this presence that I then happened to miss. And they were just all so lovely and so welcoming. I think we're going kayaking. I'm very excited. And it was like I didn't have to be this independent young girl anymore. I could just be a child. But it was always so expensive. And my mum was kind of too afraid to come back. Just look at that view. And you know what? I did get better. My mum is the strongest person that I know. You were a little lost soul, but you were brave and determined. You know, my heart might be a bit dented, a bit bruised, but it's not broken. Some things were just a bit askew. I've got 21 days. I've still got, I don't know, like 15 days. 4 days left. I go home tomorrow morning. Hi, my name's Hannah. I'm 29 years old. I'm the eldest of 3 children. My parents are divorced, so I've just spent 3 weeks in Canada. I've arrived. Today is October the 2nd, 2024, and it's currently 5 past 8 in the evening, which means it's 4 AM back in the UK. I was gonna do just a whole, get all the boring stuff out of the way, but I think I'm gonna cry instead. Oh, I did it. This is a sign of things to come, I think, for this documentary. Plenty of tears. I only think these tears because I'm so tired, but also because I made it, I did it, but I'm also here by myself. Yeah, I cried a little bit this morning, as I'm going to check in, and then I was fine. And then on the plane journey, as we were sort of coming into land, I could just feel myself getting upset. I think it's just because I've never done this before, never this far, and never by myself. So it's all a bit scary, but I'm here, I made it. I've got 21 days of Canadianness, and yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna have the best time. So shall I get to the boring stuff now? Okay, I've pulled myself together a little bit. So the boring stuff. My mum and dad married in May 1994. There is a 10-year age gap between my mum and my dad. So when I was born in May 1995, my dad was 24 and my mum was 33. My sister was then born, Chloe, in 2000, and my brother Liam was born in 2003. My mum was a team manager at a bank and had been for years before becoming a stay-at-home mum after my sister was born. And my dad is a civil engineer and started his own company within that same field. You know, it was the typical middle-class upbringing, a mortgage on a new build 4-bed property. We even went to private school for a few years. But then in 2007, it all changed, when my dad decided we were moving to Canada. Good morning. First day in Canada, and I feel so much better than yesterday. I think I was just really tired, but there's something missing. Ooh, I feel more Canadian already. Let's go!
Everybody's got a problem that they don't know how to solve. Like life don't make no sense at all. And everybody feels something that nobody feels. Hurting takes some time to heal.
So the first time I made this journey was in April 2007, just me and my dad. So my dad had already found a job, and he was going over in the Easter break to meet his new boss, to maybe look for a house in preparation for permanently moving out in the September of 2007. Now at this time, my mum was doing a degree and still had one more year left, so she wasn't going to be moving out in that September 2007 because she didn't finish her degree till the following year in 2008. My plan was to also move out in September of 2007 with my dad. So I went with him over the Easter break to get a bit of a taster for myself. I should have guessed from the flight itself that I wasn't going to have the greatest of times. Now, back then I used to be a really fussy eater, not so much anymore. So all I ate for the whole journey was a strawberry yoghurt and just drank so much water just to stop myself from being sick, I think with all the anxiety. So by the time we landed in Vancouver, we hired a car and we were getting a ferry over to the island, Campbell River, where we have family. The family members that live in Campbell River are the kind of family members that are so distant in relation through kind of cousins and how it's come down the line that there's like no actual term to call them. So I always just ended up saying auntie and uncle and my cousins and stuff. But there was two in particular, my auntie Margaret and my uncle Reno, that were more like grandparents than anything. So after the 2 weeks had finished, I'd decided very quickly that I wasn't ready to move out in the September when my dad was moving out, and I was going to wait a little bit longer. Mainly for the fact that I just miss my mum too much. I just couldn't do it. Sorry, I just keep getting distracted. Canada have black squirrels. I don't know if they're called black squirrels. There might be a type of grey squirrel. But they're like just such a dark black. I've only ever seen grey or red squirrels before, so this is new. So September 2007 comes around and off my dad goes to Canada. And at the same time, I started a new school back in England. And like every other school I've been to, I was bullied. And I weirdly missed my dad too. So the plan was in December of 2007, we were all going to go out and spend Christmas together. And when my mum, brother and sister came back home, I would then stay. Because it wasn't going to be long until May 2008 when my mum, brother and sister were going to join us and we'd all be together. This meant that in January 2008, after Christmas, when my mum, brother and sister then returned home, it was just going to be my dad for 5 months. And it was horrible. What I've now realised is what I missed about him wasn't him, it was his presence that I missed. You know, the kind of family of five atmosphere, which he was never a really big part of. He was like constantly in his office, and I understand, you know, he was self-employed, doing his own business, but we had, as children, like we had to fight constantly or compromise on whatever just to have any time with him or have any attention from him. You know, he was never a present father. He was just this presence that I then happened to miss. I came up with that myself. Do you like it? It's quite nifty. Presence over present.
When tears turn into waterfalls and everything keeps moving but you're standing still, hurting takes some time to heal.
By January 2008, our mum, brother and sister went home. My dad had been in Canada for 4 or 5 months by himself at this point, and he'd created this bachelor lifestyle that a child just didn't fit into. And again, food was a big issue. I was really struggling to settle in at school, and I remember every morning I'd wake up and I'd be sick. But because I wasn't eating properly, there was nothing to throw up, so it was just this awful acid sick every single morning. And I'd got so run down over my anxiety about going to school that I got really ill. I got tonsillitis. Anyway, I had that for 2 weeks and I was off school for 2 weeks. And I still, after I was better, I was pretending not to be better. So one morning I was like, no, I really don't want to go into school. So I remember I put my head up against the radiator in my bedroom just before my dad came in the room so that he'd say, oh, how are you feeling? And I was like, no, not very well. I still can't go in, just to try and make sure that I didn't have to go in. I remember staying up till past midnight and ringing my mum, who would have been on the school run at 8 a.m. in England, to say, Mum, I really don't want to go in. My dad just wasn't helping me settle in, helping me adjust, because he was fine. He was in a routine. He was all sorted. But for me, just, even though Canada is an English-speaking country, just the differences in the English language and what things are called, I was having to, at 12 years old, translate in my head before I said something so that people would understand what I was asking for or what I was saying. So there was just so much going on in my little 12-year-old brain. I just wasn't being helped. And the only person who could help me was 5,000 miles away, that my mum had to get my dad to go into school to sort it out.
Yeah, I'm off to school. Come on.
The biggest difference between the education systems in England and Canada is the fact that in England we start education a year sooner than people do in Canada. So we're 4 years old in England, whereas in Canada you're 5 years old. So when I came to Canada, compared to the people that are the same age as me, I've had a year extra of education. So if they were to put me within my same age group, I was a year ahead, which meant they then bumped me up into grade 8, so that my education level matched the education level of the people that I was with. But that also meant that I was a 12-year-old turning 13, with 13-year-olds turning 14. So the oldest person in the class could have already have been 14, and I was still 12. So compared, 2 years, there could have been a 2-year age gap between me and other students. I've come outside because the weather's lovely. Oh no, the seat's wet. Is it ever wet? Without context, that just looks like I'm checking my bum out in the camera. And it looks fine. So, just for a bit of context, or maybe a bit TMI for the story, but hey ho. When we came out for Christmas on December the 17th, 2007, 5 days later, on December the 22nd, I started my period. So I started puberty quite early. So when my mum left in January, I had no idea how to cope month by month. with my period, I didn't want to go to people's houses because I didn't know what to do with like my sanitary products once I'd like used them. And my dad just was no help at all in trying to help me deal with that too. He really forced us to kind of embrace this Canadian lifestyle, which is great, and I guess that was the kind of whole point of moving out to Canada. But for a 12-year-old kid who didn't know any different, everything that was normal wasn't there anymore. My family was split in different countries. I just wasn't allowed the time to adjust at my own pace.
Are you going through something that weighs on your mind? When any consolation isn't easy to find, but you never want to show it and you keep it concealed.
No.
Take some time to heal.
That has to be the most epic shot I've taken to date.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Before I moved out, my dad had started a running club when it was just him by himself. And he continued to go to that running club when I was there. And on Wednesdays, his work that he went to, they did something called a wings night. And straight after work, they'd go out for a meal as like a company. Anyway, this one Wednesday, I get home from school, he's gone out to wings night after work, and I'm sat there, it's getting really late, and I'm absolutely starving. And there was like no snacks in the house or anything. I didn't really know how to cook for myself at all. And anyway, he comes in the door, doesn't say a word to me, heads straight upstairs for a shower. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, as he's coming downstairs, I'm like, he's just going to leave, isn't he? He's not going to do anything. So he's about to go out the door. I said, what about my tea? And he went, oh, yeah, there's some frozen mini pizzas. Just, put them in the oven. I'd never used like the oven before. I had no idea what to do. But that became the norm every Wednesday. He'd go out to wings night, come home, go for his run, and I'd just sort of fend for myself and learn how to... I basically lived off of frozen mini pizzas. It was quite lonely. But isn't this just beautiful? I've never been to Hornby before, and this is Helliwell Park. And honestly, this might be the highlight of the trip. So far, I've still got, I don't know, like 15 days. Yesterday, on the way back from Hornby Island, we stopped off in Cumberland. Ta-da, as you can see. And I managed to meet family that I never knew existed. So we've kind of finally worked out how I'm actually related to the people that I call auntie. So my Auntie Margaret is a direct cousin of my dad's dad, so my grandpops. And yesterday I met the family of my Auntie Margaret's brother, Bronco Moncrief, who I'd never heard of before, and he was like the mayor of Cumberland for 25 years. He was like, he'd been awarded the Order of the Rising Sun, which is Japan's second highest honour. He was just such an amazing man, And I mean, he passed away in 2022, unfortunately, so I never got to meet him. But I met like his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren yesterday. And they were just all so lovely and so welcoming. And it was really nice to see sort of more extended family that I never knew even existed. So yeah, it was a very, very busy weekend. Going to Hornby, which was completely unplanned. Helliwell Park, I think, has made the trip so far. It was absolutely gorgeous. I saw 2 whales. And then on to Cumberland. So I'm taking today. I've been here, I think, 5 days now. And it's just been go, 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 go. So I'm taking today to kind of refuel, especially because I feel I'm all bunged up with a cold, to refuel a bit, to chill, before I get going again tomorrow. Got the goods. There was a Friday where my dad decided we were going to get a treat, and we went to Little Caesars Pizza, and he got a pizza and I got a pizza. And for whatever reason, on this particular Friday, I couldn't finish the whole pizza. But my dad wouldn't let me throw away the 2 slices that were left. He said, no, you've got to put it in the fridge and have it tomorrow morning. Which I thought was the worst thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. Cold pizza, never had it before. I don't want to try it, it sounds disgusting. But I think it also took me back to 6-7-year-old me, back in England, being put on the kitchen floor. My dad sat on top of me, force feeding me cold fish fingers that I hadn't managed to eat the night before. So my 2 slices of cold pizza get put in the fridge, and I come down Saturday morning, take them out, and reluctantly eat them. And oh my goodness, they were the best thing ever. Cold pizza was revolutionary to 12-year-old Hannah. So every Friday, it became routine. We'd go and get pizza, and I purposefully these times would leave 2 slices just so I could put them in the fridge and have them cold on Saturday mornings. And I think it was because it meant that I had something to look forward to. I knew that I would get joy and excitement out of these cold slices of pizza every Saturday morning in a time where there was no happiness or excitement or joy in those 5 months when it was just me and my dad. It looks just as I remember. It smells the same too. Oh, yum, I should have got a dip or something. But it's kind of become this metaphor for being scared, doing it anyway, and then finding the joy in something. Their tomato sauce hasn't changed.
Are you getting cold in the fridge?
On the road, I've been away for far too long, but now I'm on my way back home. I hear the west winds calling.
So now it's May of 2008, and my birthday's on May the 10th. And the plan was for my mum, brother and sister to move out to Canada on the 13th of May. So they were just missing my big teenager birthday by 3 days, but it was okay, I didn't care because my mum was coming. Anyway, on May the 3rd, my dad says, we need to go and pick a parcel up from the airport for his friend. So I was like, okay, yeah, no worries. So off we go to Campbell River Airport, and I'm stood looking out of the window, and the small tiny like put-put plane lands, and the stairs get pulled down, and I'm just sat watching, and then I just see like these little legs coming down the stairs, and then around the plane comes my mum, brother and sister. So they arrived a week before my birthday, and that had been the surprise all along. Anyway, now I'm off to Quadra Island, so I'm on the ferry, hence the windswept hair, to meet a friend that I went to school with who, I had quite a few friends that lived on Quadra Island, and I think we're going kayaking. I'm very excited.
Won't be long. I'm there before the setting sun, for you to fall into my arms, a place I call my home. I was looking to belong when I already found my home.
Oh my god, that's a bit scary! Oh, that was scary! This is the Campbell River, where salmon come to spawn and then die. Oh, I've climbed so many steps this morning. I'm very, very sweaty. It wasn't long after my mum arrived that we went shopping, within a couple of days, and I was asking to try all these things, and she was saying yes. She was saying yes to all these things that I'd previously been told no to, or things that I'd always been too afraid to try. But all of a sudden, I felt safe, and I felt comfortable, and it was like I didn't have to be this independent young girl anymore. I could just be a child. Can you believe I've been here 10 days and I've not had a Tim Hortons yet? Well, I've had to change that, so I've got a Tim Hortons coffee, and in honour of my sister, I have got a Boston cream donut, which was her favourite. No, I've never said that my dad was abusive. But I think as I've got older, like over the years, I've kind of realised that maybe some of the things that he did wasn't normal. And that, yeah, there were elements of mental abuse for sure with my mum. But like physical abuse with us kids. You know, we kind of played it off as, you know, that's just the way he disciplines. But it wasn't right. I've sort of said that my dad was like Superman. That to the outside world, he presented himself as, you know, the world's best dad, the world's best husband, like, you know, the ever-doting father who would do anything for his kids. And then as soon as we'd get home, it's like zip, unzip, and it'd be a completely different story. But then, like us children, more so my sister and I, we'd play on it. We knew that if we pushed his buttons, you know, we'd eventually get a response from him. And I think it was just to get any sort of attention from him. So it either usually ended in a smack, or I'd be dragged up the stairs by my hair and he'd sort of lock me in my room. And I always remember, like, the force I'd try to twist the doorknob with against him just holding it closed. He used to, when I was much, much younger, whenever I was naughty or like I was winding my sister up or something, he would sit me on the floor with my back against the settee. He would be sat on the settee. He'd put his legs over my shoulders and then like in between my legs and spread my legs apart. And the more I wriggled and the more I complained, the wider like and tighter he pulled my legs. The camera wasn't rolling, but I just dropped the biggest dollop of custard on my jeans. I think it was over the following 6 months after my mum arrived in the May that I started to notice that things just weren't right. And whether that was right in the sense of what seems normal, i.e. what was normal for me and our family, didn't quite seem normal in the same for other people's family, which made me question how normal was it. But also in terms of like my parents' relationship, and just some things were just a bit askew. I lied. I also got a second donut. An apple fritter has been eyeing me up since I got here. So I couldn't say no. I just had to give in. See, look at that. You know, once my mum and brother and sister arrived and we were all back together again, over the following 6 months, we really started to settle in. We started to create our own life in Canada as a family. At one point, I think it was in the July, I think maybe, my dad had even mentioned my mum and dad renewing their vows. We just sort of all started to settle in. We were looking at houses. They'd put every month they were putting a holding deposit down on a piece of land to maybe build our own house. We were looking at houses. Yeah, we were really sort of starting to put roots down, really starting to settle in and adapt to, you know, this Canadian lifestyle, but now back again as a family of 5. So this is the Spit. So behind me is Quadra Island that I got the ferry to the other day. And as a family, we used to come down here quite a bit kind of over the summer. We'd do bonfires and we'd roast marshmallows and make s'mores. And there was one time that weekend, this all happened on the same night. And sorry to throw Liam, my brother, under the bus, but so he was 4 years old and he had an accident. So he had to take his underwear off. And my mum was like, okay, let's just chuck it on the bonfire. And then down at the water's edge, I was sort of walking along and I found a dead crab. And they were like, I don't know what to do with it. Someone was like, throw it back in the water. So I go to throw it back in the water. But I didn't let go of the leg. So the whole rest of the crab gets chucked into the water. But then I'm still holding this dead crab leg. You know, I do say, and I've talked a lot about, the negative stuff. Because that's the stuff that's kind of most prominent and the things that you remember. But it wasn't all bad. You know, there were times like these that as a family we did things and that we all enjoyed and we all had a really good time. But I loved the bonfires. I love s'mores.
How does it feel to be an All-American? I got a food.
Sugar was good for you.
Give me a pint of Guinness and a beans on toast, please.
Is that delicious?
Yeah, well, I can't do a Forrest Gump accent.
So I'm packing up because I leave Campbell River tomorrow. And I've had to say goodbye to some relatives today. That I don't think I'm going to see again.
Underneath the revelry, it's hard to keep your pulse in time.
They're in their mid-90s. And we kind of always wanted to come back as a family and see them and see other family. But it was always so expensive. my mum was kind of too afraid to come back. So 2 years ago when I started saving, I didn't know who was still going to be around. And they are, which I'm so grateful for. I'm so glad that I got to spend some really good quality time with them. But it's sad. I don't think I'm gonna come back. Not for a long time. I think part of it is that, you know, I'm saying goodbye to Campbell River. It used to be my home. I'm glad I could come back and kind of make it feel like home again. But my holiday's not done yet. Campbell River, the chapter of Campbell River might be changing, might be ending. But I still have like 9 more days of holiday. And I have more story to tell. So I still hope you're with me up to this point. Because things are about to get juicy. Today is October the 15th, and 16 years ago today, on October the 15th, 2008, my dad said he wanted a divorce. I actually remember this night very vividly, which is why I think I remember the date so well. It wasn't much later than it actually is now, it's about 10 p.m. now. And my mum came and knocked on my bedroom door in tears, saying that Dad had left her. My mum had been in the country for 6 months and didn't have a job because she was not a Canadian citizen. She wouldn't have been eligible for any government support, you know, to now be a single parent. And with how kind of the dynamic in the situation changed, it became clear that in order for my mum to keep us children safe, to keep herself safe, and to kind of feel supported and I guess comfortable in her environment, that we would move back to England.
It's Wednesday. It's wings night. Okay. I don't want the green bits. Okay. Oh shoot, it's not recording. Don't do that to me. These are better than the honey garlic ones that I've had before.
Keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Leap on leaping on. Leap on leaping on.
Up to this point, I've been very careful to make sure that I only tell my story, my experience of Canada. Not my mum's, not my sister's, not my brother's. But in order for me to tell the next part of the story, I have to give a little bit of context, which means that I have to tell a certain part of, I guess, my mum's experience. Because then that impacted decisions that were made that then affects my story. At the time when my dad told my mum he wanted a divorce, the sale of the house back in England had just gone through. So that money was going into their joint bank account. So my dad threatened that he was going to take all the money and leave, disappear, and we'd never see or hear from him again. And so my mum was transferring just her portion of the house sale into her own bank account. But you could only do so much every day because of the bank's daily limits. But she was doing this without my dad knowing. So all within a month, because we left Canada on November the 17th, 2008, my mum packed up all our belongings, which a lot of them weren't even out of their boxes from when my mum arrived 6 months ago, booked flights for us all, and tried to find a house for us to rent back in England. My mum really tried to squeeze in as many of our favourite things that we'd done up to that point in that last month. So we'd went up Mount Washington one final time. We went to kind of all these restaurants that we loved, White Spot, Popsies, just so we could kind of have one final hurrah of all our Canadian experiences. You remember the running club? Well, we have later come to find out, not long after we returned from Canada, that there was a woman that he met at the running club. And he tried to put my mum, and I think potentially us children, in a women's shelter in Canada so that he could move the woman into our house, because she'd also left her husband and didn't have anywhere to go. Poutine was my last meal at the airport when we were leaving Canada, and I haven't had it since I've been back. For those who don't know, poutine is chips like fries, gravy and cheese. Which brings us to November the 16th, 2008, our last night in Canada. My dad knew that the following day we were flying home to England, but he didn't know any times or anything. So my mum agreed that he could come round the night before and say goodbye to us all. And it very quickly turned into an argument about money, because he had now realised what my mum had been doing for the past month in transferring money out of their joint account. Now, earlier that day, we'd been round to our next door neighbour's house, who we'd become really close with, because my mum knew it was probably not going to go very smooth when my dad came round later that night. And so they said, if it starts to go south, come straight round our house and, we'll kind of keep you safe. When the argument started, my mum stood up from the settee straight away and said, right kids, come on, let's go, we're going next door. So she stood up, we went to the closet by the front door to get our coats, and my dad stood up at the same time, and he went to the front door, got there first and put his hand against the front door to stop us from leaving. And I don't know whether it was adrenaline or panic mode, but I instantly run in the opposite direction, out the back door, and barefoot, the ground is all wet. I run right round the side of the house to the next door neighbours. I'm banging on the front door. They answer, and I say, my dad's not letting us leave. They come round to our house. My dad lets them in through the front door, and our next door neighbours you need to calm down, you need to leave. And he did. My dad left. But then my mum was in a tricky situation, because my dad still had keys to the house, so she didn't want us to spend the night there in case he came back. So we're round at our next door neighbour's house. My mum goes upstairs because my next door neighbours advised her to call the non-emergency police just to let them know the situation that had just happened, of a domestic dispute. So my mum is upstairs, she's calling the police, we're downstairs. My mum gets off the phone and the decision is made that we were going to go and stay with my Auntie Margaret and Uncle Reno for our last night. So they come round in their like big truck, and we just chuck everything in, our suitcases that were practically all packed, and the rest of our belongings we just shoved in bin liners. And I remember like tossing bin liners into the back of my Uncle Reno's truck, and we stayed the night at their house. My sister and I were in the bedroom upstairs, and my mum and brother were in the bedroom downstairs, and I couldn't sleep. So I came downstairs and went into my mum and brother's room, and I remember there just wasn't much space at the end of the side of the bed because my brother was just taking up so much room. And then my mum woke up in the middle of the night to finish packing. She was taking the things that were in like the bin liners and trying to squeeze them into our suitcase. Now come morning, there was still so many bin liners that still needed somewhere to go. So my mum and I quickly nipped out to, I think it was a store called Zeller's at the time, and we bought this huge like ice hockey gym bag, huge, just so we could shove all those, it was like miscellaneous items that I guess we didn't want to throw away, but they'd been missed in the packing of all our belongings to go in boxes in a container back to England. We get to Campbell River Airport. Auntie Margaret and Uncle Reno also came to drop us off, and we're loading all of our suitcases through, and the one hockey bag, there seems to be a problem with it. They, like the people that are checking us in, are saying, oh, we just need to take this one bag through to the back. We're like, okay, do you know, it's the one that's filled with miscellaneous items, like, yeah, that's the problem. So they're taking a while, they like eventually, let's say like it's all fine, and we turn around, and walking up into the departure area was my dad. And I think my sister shouts out, like she's then starting to cry and get upset, and within minutes of him arriving, the police also arrive. So my sister's now in hysterics. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I remember my heart pounding. The police take my mum and dad to the side, one policeman like each, and us three children are stood with my Auntie Margaret and Uncle Reno. They ask my mum if they want my dad arrested or put in handcuffs, and my mum says no. We're not sure at this point how or why the police turned up so quickly after my dad then arrived, but again the situation was diffused. My dad turned up not to say goodbye to his children, but because he was furious about the money and demanded to know what it is that my mum had done with the money from the house sale. My dad leaves, he gives us all a quick hug goodbye. We go through security. My mum is uncontrollably shaking that she couldn't like take her belt off her jeans, so they like just waved us through. It then turns out the lady that was checking us in, she was buying time by taking that one suitcase through to the back, because at several points that morning my dad had repeatedly been to the airport asking when the Blake family were leaving, and for confidentiality they couldn't let them know. So when my mum and three young children arrived at the airport and they saw that it was this young family, they called the police. And now I'm not sure whether them calling the police, in addition to my mum calling the police the night before, kind of alarm bells rang and that's why they were there so quickly. But the lady came round once we were sat in the departure gate, in the departure lounge, and sort of she came round, she sat next to my mum, put her hand on my mum's knee and explained what had just happened, and they were worried for our safety when they saw that it was, you know, this woman and three young children. My mum is the strongest person that I know, and in the lead up to us leaving Canada, she said that the four of us were now as strong as a diamond, each of us a point on the diamond, and that we were all connected. and my mum, sister and I actually got it tattooed all in the same spot a few years ago. But my brother hasn't. So technically, it's a triangle. And Liam, you need to go and get it tattooed so that we can be complete. After a very hectic travel day with a delayed flight, a missed bus and a very expensive taxi, I've made it to the top of the Sea to Sky gondola. Just look at that view. I mean, it is snowing and it is okay, maybe look, there's a bit of a better view over that way. But look, oh, look how it's as far as the eye can see, such clear skies. Do you know what's a bit upsetting? Upsetting's not the right word. But like, this could have been my backyard. You know, this Canadian landscape could have been my back garden. And I'm sure like Canadians or anybody else that would come to England would have the same thoughts and feelings about, you know, like our countryside and our landscape. And for me it's normal, and for you guys, for Canadians, this is normal. But even if like this view isn't so great, it is still pretty phenomenal. But it's flipping freezing. I have an announcement. If you're a Canadian watching this, I am apologising in advance. But since I've been here, the only coffee that I've actually liked has been from Tim Hortons. I'm sorry. Everywhere else has just been too bitter. I have 4 days left to find a coffee from an independent company that I actually like. So hope I can do it. When we left Canada, it was another very scary time for all of us. Yes, we were returning home to England, but it was going to be completely different. It wasn't going to be the same house. It wasn't going to be the same version of family that we were all used to. It was going to be with a single parent, a single mum. And what we didn't know at the time is that it was the best thing that could have ever have happened to us. It was another cold pizza on a Saturday morning. I've been upgraded to a 1-bed suite. I mean, I'd already kind of splashed out a little bit for my final 3 days, which I'm now in Whistler, but they've upgraded me. So I have like a separate room, that's my bedroom. I've got a lovely kitchen area. There's just so much room for activities. And I even have a balcony. I don't think I've ever been in a room that's got a balcony before. It's exciting. feel like I don't want to say this next part. I don't think it's super pertinent to the story, but it matters to me. My worst fear is my mum dying. I know it's inevitable. But she's my only parent. She's always been my constant, my comfort, my safety. I don't know who I'd ask all my questions to about life. She's the person I discuss all my crazy ideas with. She's the person, keeps me grounded. But she's also the person that, lets me soar, lets me fly high and achieve all my dreams. My mum had to have a major operation back in March of 22. And I still feel, as the eldest child, that I am the protector. And I'm the one that stays strong and doesn't necessarily show how I feel to Chloe and Liam in those instances, to protect them. So, I would just update my brother, on whether she was in and out of surgery just yet and the plan and what was going on. And then my sister would talk to me about her worries and, she would get upset. But I just held it, that I will take the weight of it all. I will hold it, I can bear it. But then it wasn't until I finally got word that she was out of theatre and back on the ward, which she was 2 hours late, that didn't help, that when I rang my sister to say everything was okay, that's when I broke down. Like I didn't have to be strong anymore. And I don't know whether it's just a me thing, it's in my personality. I just feel this level of responsibility to make sure that my brother and sister are okay. I mean, we're all adults now. Chloe's 24. Liam turns 21 in November. Like, we're all good. I don't know, I dread that day. If Grey's Anatomy has taught me anything, it is that if in doubt, dance it out. If you think that is talent, wait until you see me wiggle my ears. I was only in Canada for 11 months. 6 months for my mum, brother and sister, but 11 months for me. And I've always viewed myself as kind of my life before Canada and my life post-Canada. Like, it was such a definitive experience. I think because even though it was only a short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, like, it was my core years, right? So I was 12 and 13 years old. A lot happened in those 11 months that, like, you know, I couldn't help but be different afterwards. When we first came back from Canada, my dad continued to put obstacles in the way, whether that was by way of withholding the maintenance money or making rules about the maintenance money that he had to send every month, or whether that was contacting our schools that we were going to say that, you know, my mum was withholding information from my dad. I actually met my teacher from when I first came back from Canada, just before I came out, and she said to me, "You were a little lost soul, but you were brave and determined." And I think back to that little lost soul. You know, I'd just been through a lot. My parents had just got divorced. I'd moved 5,000 miles one way and then 5,000 miles back 11 months later. And I was 13 years old. I now had a single mum as my kind of sole custodian. I had a younger brother and sister. We didn't have any money. It was just completely different to the life that I was used to. My contact with my dad was kind of off and on over the years, you know, that when we came back from Canada. But nothing about him was unconditional. So he would say things like, "You're not getting a birthday present or you're not getting a Christmas present if you don't speak to me on the phone," or, you know, "I haven't spoken to the children in a few weeks, so I'm not paying the maintenance money." Everything just always had to have a justification or a reason to do something, rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it because I was his kid. And then as I got older, we'd email back and forth, and then I went to university, and like, it was just like constant circles. So we'd start talking, and then he'd either say something, or maybe I'd say something, and we'd not necessarily fall out, but then we'd just stop contact, and then more time would pass, and then I think, right, let me try again, let's try and kind of build a relationship. And it'd just be this constant cycle, this constant way of doing things. But like, I was the one that was trying, but I was the kid. It's weird because every so often I'll kind of get this urge to message him, to try again, which I never really understand why, because I know what the outcome will be. Like, I know it's not going to work out, but I think it's because in my head I'm like, well, he's my dad. Do you know, like, I should be having a relationship with him in whatever form that takes. And then whenever I then do try, I'm very quickly reminded of why I stopped trying, because we just can't make it work.
Do you feel the winds are turning round?
In 2018, my dad sent my mum an email out of the blue to say that he'd been seeking professional help, and that this professional told him that in order for him to move forward, he had to get something off his chest. And that was that throughout my parents' marriage, he had cheated on my mum 5 times. Which brings me to 2019. Once again, my dad emailed my mum, but this time asking for an update on my brother. And I thought, do you know what? Let me try again. Let me email him and update him about, everything that I've been going on. I was 24 at that point. And actually, it was just before my 24th birthday. And so I decided that the amount of times that we've gone round and round in circles is because I've never fully communicated my feelings. And so I thought what was best, and that in order for us to move forward and try and build a relationship, I needed to get all my feelings across about how I felt at that time, how I felt in Canada, kind of all those things, which I did. And I used the analogy that you wouldn't build a bridge on faulty foundations. And what I meant by that is that for him to have cheated on my mum repeatedly, that was a choice that he continuously made. And so for him to keep making those choices, to me, means that his just morals weren't right. His foundations were wonky. And so I was using the bridge, as in building this relationship, building this bridge, as a metaphor. And so I went back the other day and I reread the email chain, and I've got to be honest, I have remembered it differently to how it actually went down. But basically, he responded to my email thanking me for being open and honest, and hoped that with me doing that, we could kind of find a place to start from and move forward. However, he also responded with a lengthy email kind of answering all my questions, but not understanding why I feel the way I do. He said, I've even talked to other people about how you feel, and they don't get it either. He then went on to say that he owns his mistakes, he owns the fact that he cheated, but he went on to justify, in this email, why he cheated by not only giving me quotes with references, but by justifying it by giving me statistics on why men cheat. So I responded in capital letters, goodbye. And I haven't spoken to him since. And he hasn't messaged me, reached out to me. And honestly, that's the only boundary that he has ever stuck to. And I don't care. In January of 2013, my mum got sick, and she'd been unwell for about a week, and we all heard this shout for help, and my mum's in the bathroom not knowing what to do with herself, like she was so ill. And I'm stood next to my mum, my brother and sister are stood in the bathroom doorway looking at me for guidance. And I'm wondering if this is now, like, do I call an ambulance? Like, what do I do? Anyway, she got back to bed and she phoned the doctor the following day. And the doctor thought it was meningitis. So an ambulance was phoned straight away and she was rushed to hospital. Thankfully, it turned out to just be glandular fever. In January 2013, I was 17. I wasn't 18 yet. I wasn't legally an adult in England. So when my brother and sister were looking at me as to what to do, I felt a bit helpless because God forbid my mum had actually died, Dad would have got custody of my brother and sister and took them back to Canada. Within a couple of days, once my mum got back from hospital, I went to make myself a drink. So I went to put the bottle of juice back in the cupboard, and I hadn't put it in the cupboard quite far enough, so I just pushed it in with my foot. And straight away I thought, oh my God, my mum's going to touch that bottle, my foot's just touched it, my foot is dirty, mum's going to get sick again. And then I made a ham sandwich, and my thought process was, Mum is going to make a ham sandwich too, she's going to touch the same ham, I need to make sure I only touch my slice that I'm about to use. And so very quickly, within a couple of days of my mum getting back from hospital, I started to develop these compulsions. And for years, we're talking almost 10 years, we played it off as, oh, Hannah just likes to wash her hands a lot, oh, I'm just a bit of a germaphobe. And I knew it was more than just being a germaphobe, but I never took it any further, and over those sort of 9-10 years I made adjustments to life in how I would be able to do certain tasks. But it all came to a head in May of 2022 when I found myself in this downward spiral. All the adaptations that I'd put in place over the years weren't working anymore, and it was also, in addition to the contamination, it was order and symmetry. So I would have, I'd get all panicky if I didn't fold a towel a certain way. I didn't use 2 light switches for months. I'd walk upstairs to my room in the dark, because if I used one at the bottom and used it at the top, then they'd be the wrong way round for being off and on. And so it got to the point where I needed help. And so it was 3 work actually that recommended that I get a referral to an NHS initiative called Minds Matter. And so I ended up having 14 weeks of intensive CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy for OCD. And you know what? I did get better. I did. We do a score thing, a test thing after so many weeks, and I started off as a 76 on the OCD scale, and I ended on a 16. So it's not a cure, and I definitely still have up and down days, up and down weeks, kind of just phases that I go through. But I know what my triggers are now. I know that anxiety and stress are the biggest triggers, but I know how to deal with it. And most importantly, I now know how to ask for help. I can say, to my family, I can't do that today, please will you help me?
Little father that makes pain, sitting on the top is the mother hen. Crackle, 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 what do I see? 10 little fluffy chicks as fluffy as can be.
A baseball game's on, so I've been watching that whilst I've been eating my tea and just kind of chilling. I actually, back in England, I play a sport called rounders, which is the ancestral sport, the sport that started it all for baseball and softball. It's the sport that came first and that then was adapted, and that's what then became baseball and softball. And I'm actually part of the talent team that's in training to hopefully be selected to play for the national England team. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that happens. When I first graduated from university, I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in acting. And I also started my own film company. So when I haven't had many acting jobs and nothing of, real significance. You know, when people say, oh, what have you been in? And I have to say, you know, kind of just some regional theatre tours and kind of student films. You know, it was never Coronation Street, unfortunately. But whenever I did get an acting role, I never wanted to use my surname. I never wanted to be known as Hannah Blake, because I thought when I won my Oscar and they called out my name for Best Actress, I didn't want them to say Hannah Blake. I didn't want my dad to be sat at home being like, yeah, it's my daughter, Blake, yeah, you know, same surname, that's my daughter. Almost like he would have some pride in it. And he doesn't deserve to have any pride in any of my achievements because he held no part in helping me achieve them. And so I used to go by Hannah Louise. I used to use my middle name. And that was kind of my professional acting name, Hannah Louise. And that went on for several years. And I mean, I haven't had an acting job in a couple of years now, and you know, I am more than happy, you know, that I'm at a point in my life where I'm kind of, you know, I'm happy to put that to bed. You know, that kind of career path. But it's only been in the last couple of years where I've sort of really just started thinking to myself, like, oh, hang on a second, Hannah. You make the name. You define what Blake means, what Blake stands for. But that I'm in control of what it stands for in the future, going forward. I've just got back from ziplining, and that has to have been the best experience, hands down, since I've been in Canada. Like, I am very wet and very cold. I wish you could see, I'm not going to show you, but the colour of my right big toe, because it turns out my boots have holes in the bottom of them, so they're very wet. So I'm just going to try and dry them out, but easily. Ziplining, #1 experience. Helliwell Park on Hornby Island, #2. And recording my song in a professional recording studio, #3. Ooh, bit of grass. You should know by now that anytime I sit you down on a table in a hotel room, I have an announcement to make. But it's mainly because I can't find anywhere else quiet enough outside to film, and I'm still, after all this time, I get still a bit like hung up with people passing as I'm like speaking to a camera. Anyway, I have never been in a relationship. And I know what you're thinking. How, Hannah, is that possible? I know, right? I get it. I've dated, but it's taken me, I'm getting better. I kind of really only started dating people towards the end of university, and particularly after I graduated university. But how do I say it? There's a couple of parts to that, and I think the first part is that I have a really hard time believing that somebody will actually like me, and that when I'm dating somebody, I kind of second guess, you know, their reasoning, which is really bad, and I shouldn't do that. If someone is showing up and spending their time with me and wanted to date me, that is clear enough reason. But secondly, and I am much better than I was, but particularly when I first started dating, anytime a guy would say something or act in a certain way that was reminiscent of the same things my dad would say or my dad would do, that was an immediate nope, no thank you, goodbye, I'm not dating you anymore. And I've had to realise over the years that it's just a personality trait. Like, you know, they are common amongst different people, and I can't control, speaking of my OCD, control that in everybody. There isn't going to be this perfect person, this perfect polar opposite to what dad was. But I'm learning. I am getting better. Do you know, I also could never get to a third date for years and years and years. I'm talking as if I'm 40, right? I'm 29, okay? Like, I could only ever get to 2 dates because I felt that after 2 dates, if I was to go to a third, then it meant something. Even if I was still unsure about my feelings, that getting to a third date was commitment. But you'll be pleased to know that I have since been able to get to 4 dates with a guy, so there is still hope yet. But here's the thing. I hate blaming as much as I do on my dad. I don't want to use him as a constant excuse. However, it does just so happen that him and Canada are the roots of a lot of my trauma. So in some aspects it can't be helped, but I hate the fact that I think it's him, that I have to use my dad as the reasonings behind why I am the way I am, or the way I view love and relationships.
Change is coming. A change is coming. You can will it in the right direction, you can ask it not to call, but change is coming. A change is coming. Changes.
I needed this. And I don't think I quite realised how much I needed to come back to Canada. I go home tomorrow morning and it's just been, 21 days of incredibleness. No. I've cried more times than I'm shown. I've laughed uncontrollably. I've learnt so much. I really, truly needed this. And I don't think I had any expectation of how healing this whole experience would be. I saved for 2 years to come back, and I wanted to make it an all or nothing trip, a no regrets trip. And I have no regrets. There's nothing that like I wish I would have done. I've done way more than I ever imagined. I've been to see... Why am I like so emotional? Like, I wanted to make sure that I relived experiences, but that I also made new ones that I was in control of, that were positive. And I did it. I've really done it.
It was October 15th when you tore my world apart. You'd moved us 5,000 miles away for a new start. We were a family of 5 and now we're down to 4. As you packed your bags and you rushed out the door. 13, 8 and 4 were the age of your kids. Did we even make you think about what you did? As the woman from the running club says hi, your wife and children at the airport say goodbye. I'm a fighter. You're a liar, a cheater, a sinner. I'm better off without you. You raised me to be honest. That was with the help of your fist. Up the stairs by my hair. Lock me in my room till the morning air. I'm a fighter. You're a liar, a cheater, a sinner. I'm better off without you.
Do you know what I've just realised whilst I was having my shower? That this whole experience has been another cold pizza on a Saturday morning. I was so scared to come back to Canada, and the most anxiety that I had was that I was going to run into my dad whilst I was in Campbell River. And that was my biggest hesitation. And it's turned into the best experience ever. Filled with joy, filled with happiness, filled with excitement. And I've only just realised that. Do you know, my heart is full. I'm happy. I really, truly am. I don't want to get upset again. You know, my heart might be a bit dented, a bit bruised, but it's not broken. It is full. But I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to find what my next cold pizza on a Saturday morning will be. Bye!
I'm a winner.
When I look in the mirror, it took years to see me, to discover I was finally free from a liar, a cheater, a sinner. I'm better off without you. I'm a fighter, a winner. I'm better off without